Now, Doc, thank you very much for making time to join us this morning. What do you make of the Global Info Analytics 4,311 people that they polled on what should happen by this time next week?
Yeah, thank you, Samson. Good morning, and good morning to the other guests on the show. So I was actually looking at how the question is framed specifically. And it says, if you were a delegate at the MPP presidential primary. So, I mean, Global Info Analytics is doing quite a good job in this area of polling. I think it's an area that is really needed, in our politics, in our elections. Yes, individuals sometimes do have issues with polling, but I think as one of the rituals of politics, I find polling very helpful because you get to test what I call the pulse of the nation. The one thing that I keep asking sometimes though is whether being able to poll the delegates themselves, I think would be a much stronger signal of what is going to happen. But I have also regularly said that I will be very surprised if Dr. Bawumia doesn't win the flag bearer. And as Nana Kumia was saying, their internal polling also shows that he's doing much better. And I suspect that for them, they are able to actually poll the delegates who will be casting the vote on November 4th. But when all is said and done, I have regularly said that it would come as a big surprise to me if Dr. Bawumia doesn't win the MPP flag bearership in this primary come next weekend.
The criticism, though, is that whilst he will win, he's not winning with sort of natural votes, but people who are being whipped into supporting him to as it were, seek to continue Akufo-Addo's legacy and protect it. What's your thinking?
But one thing you cannot also take from, when the MPP primaries started, right? I say that the one thing you cannot also take from Dr. Bawumia is the approach that he has taken to try and win the flag bearership. I call him the establishment's candidate, but even then, you see him engaging in classic retail politics. He's not taking anything for granted. I mean, if you follow his campaign, it's like I'm winning the hearts and minds of every delegate, one delegate at a time. Yes, it's an internal contest. An internal contest sometimes brings out very fierce competition. I mean, if you look at the kind of campaign that the Honorable Kennedy Japong is running, it's quite a fierce challenge that he's putting up against the vice president. But even though the winds, of the primary appears to be blowing in the direction of the vice president, he's also not taking it for granted. And so, sure, not everybody in the party would, and as we've seen the primaries play out, not everybody in the party would throw their weight behind him for whatever reason. They may prefer another one of the internal candidates. But again, when all is said and done, for me, it is more the post-primary that would be the biggest challenge for the party and for Dr. Bawumia when he went to the primary, right? Because when all is said and done, you still want to keep the party together, no matter how fierce the intra-party competition was, and then how you prosecute the general election.
Okay, so on a lighter note and mixed with seriousness, this is your mother's party. Who is your money on? Who among the four should the MPP be presenting to Ghanaians as worthy of being considered to be a president?
Samson, whoever my mother's party's people choose, right? The biggest challenge that they are going to face is how they reconcile the 2016 election narrative and how things have turned out over the last 7 years. Okay. Yes, they may have explanations and reasons as to why they believe the country is in the state in which it is. But fundamentally, whoever they present has to be able to reconcile the 2016 narrative with the reality that Ghanaians have experienced. And I think that's going to be the biggest headache, for the party, regardless of who they choose. I agree with Lawyer Judy when he says that for him, the person that he quote unquote fears is Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, because of his unconventional approach to the way he engages in politics, right? I think when you look at his political temperament, right, he might give them a run for their money, even though I don't think he may not necessarily win. But it's, for me,
he says Dr. Bawumia is damaged goods. In the eyes of many discerning people in this country, can we call a spade a spade? How do you put him in the same scale with Ken, if he can be described as a damaged good?
Well, you see, the problem that the advice, if we go back to 2016, Dr. Bawumia was essentially the face and the voice of the MPP's 2016 campaign, particularly in making the economic argument as to why the Mahama administration should be voted out of power. So again, for him, that is the biggest headache he faces going into 2024 when he wins the flag bearership, because he would have to reconcile all of that narrative, all of the assertions, and all of the projections of how the country would turn out with what Ghanaians have experienced over the last 7 years. And that, for me, would be the major difference